So, how far is this Grand Library from here? Jack asked, as he and Chio left the school quickly to avoid the afternoon rush at the end of the day.
The Etheria Grand Library is located towards the east of the city, Chio told him. About an hour away travelling on foot. Like the school, it was founded eons ago by a large contingent of Etheria worshippers, who is a goddess of discovery and information.
Wait, so why isn't Etheria a patron god of the school? Jack asked, feeling a bit confused. It kinda sounds like that'd be their thing.
She is a patron.
Chio smiled patiently.
However, she is not a founder. She was unaffiliated with the founder gods at the time of the school's creation, but supported the school once her church discovered it, which would likely have been soon after founding, given their proximity. Though since this, we're talking millennia. Not much is known other than that. Today the school has many gods that support it, though the founders are more publicly recognized and honored.
Fair enough, Jack shrugged. And you mentioned how big the place is before.
It's huge,
Chio exclaimed, before turning more serious.
We can have a look around if we have time, but we have a lot of specific research to do first, and I figured we might as well get you registered. I know there were some things you wanted to research yourself.
Yeah, Jack nodded with a sigh. I still want answers. The Oracle didn't have any, but what they did have just gave me more questions. I know Mr. Sparrow says that this Sable Kryn person can help me, but I might as well see what the library can tell me.
I know,
Chio told him, sensing the sadness in Jack's aura that the Death Order refused to let bubble to the surface.
We won't give up. There's got to be answers somewhere.
Speaking of answers... Jack changed the subject, conscious of the fact that thinking too much about his situation would only make him feel shitty again. Do you know what we need to focus on to get what we're looking for?
It's tricky, because we have no names or references for the area we're heading to.
Chio sighed.
The only things we have are coordinates, and knowledge that there's a shrine to Aelfil guarded by a circle of Green Wardens. Not exactly much to go on.
If the library does maps and stuff, we might be able to refine our search if it tells us the landmarks, Jack suggested, trying to be helpful.
It does, Chio acknowledged. However, you will have to see it for yourself. At least we have the name Cypherport to work with. Perhaps that will give us some more information to work with.
Hope so, Jack nodded with a grimace. The name of the river or surrounding areas would be something at least. The locals probably know more, but we won't be able to talk to them until we're actually there.
Well, we'll find out soon, Chio smiled. But first things first, we need to get you registered. That's it in the distance, can you see?
Chio asked a while later, as the two of them made their way down one of the widest streets Jack had ever seen. Despite the easily accommodated heavy flow of traffic, there seemed to be an unofficial order to how people walked, with most people walking on the left-hand side in the direction they were going, with a few large megafauna species plodding along the very edges, while smaller species stuck to the middle. Jack followed the direction in which Chio's slender finger was pointing, and just as a large elephant-like person moved out of the way, he saw it. A collection of connected, huge glass skyscrapers on the horizon was ablaze with light, as it caught and reflected the ambient glow of the neon-lit streets surrounding it. Almost like a translucent dome, he could see enchanted runes swirling ever so faintly in the air, even from a distance, in an ever-changing tapestry of colours that got more lush and vibrant with every passing moment, almost like the place reacted to being observed. Certainly the library seemed to constantly pulse with energy, radiating an aura of power that clearly distinguished it apart from anything surrounding it. Well, it's kinda hard to miss, Jack joked with a hearty chuckle, awestruck by the sheer grandeur of the place. Bloody hell.
It very much rivals the Temple of Hope in power and influence, Chio smiled, enjoying Jack's obvious amazement. Many powerful mages over the eons have added their own contributions to the place. Not just knowledge or monetary donations, but magical defenses too. What you're seeing is one of the greatest magical barriers I've ever seen, and that's just what you see from here.
Is that kinda like the Eladri magic thing Alora had with the home district? Jack asked curiously.
Kind of, but this is infinitely more powerful and precise, Chio giggled. Not even the Killer Clan will be insane enough to attack the library.
I can see why you like it so much, Jack grinned, as he gazed with amazement at the tall, elegant structures. Looking closer, Jack could see a few more crystalline buildings cresting the horizon, and he realized that they were also part of the same complex, seeing more and more as they got closer. The structure seemed to balance both elegance and functionality, as he saw one of the structures surrounded by scaffolding and large flying vehicles of some kind that looked as if they were aiding in the construction of another floor. Damn! Just how big is this place, Chio?
It encompasses many large districts, though the clerics of Etheria try their best not to overextend,
Chio excitedly told him.
Though they have needed to extend into more districts in the past, it is only done by agreement of any residents, who are generally compensated and rehomed inside library territory. The residential districts around here all swear their fealty to the library in exchange for protection and employment opportunities. It's really an ideal place to live.
Damn, they even have drones too, Jack pointed, as he spotted what he could only describe as a flock of them, hovering in formation with crystalline wings around the perimeter of the districts, glowing with soft blue light as they danced through the air.
Of course they have drones, Chio laughed. Some of the best magitech around. Even Mirrodin would struggle trying to match it.
As they got closer, Jack could see several holographic displays near the entrance to the library districts that seemed to cycle through different planets, creatures, artifacts, or anything else that looked exciting, which he presumed were for the benefit of the youngsters that stood there watching in amazement at the captivating holograms.
We'll need to head straight to the reception, Chio told him. Though it isn't mandatory, I think it would be best to get you registered first. Then, once their checks and processes are done, you can take advantage of the more advanced benefits of the library and run some searches. Have you thought about what search terms you want to prioritize?
Yeah, I have a few ideas, Jack nodded. But you mentioned that it's more of a long-term thing to have running, right?
For a search like that, it will definitely require the use of the long-term services, the other thief confirmed, as well as the cooperation of the scholars to keep you informed with what they find. However, since you're an outsider, you might be able to negotiate something if you give them some information about where you're from. I wouldn't be surprised if someone took you up on that, but unfortunately it would take a couple of days for you to be fully signed up.
Well, we're here on business, Jack shrugged with a grimace. Plus, Alora's the negotiator. I'm not the most talkative, especially since I got here.
You'll be fine, Chio dismissed. I reckon the moment they mention on your account that you're an outsider looking for answers, one of the scholars will be practically begging to talk to you. Whether or not they'll be able to help, though.
We won't know until we try, Jack nodded, turning away slightly to avoid revealing the look of trepidation on his face. But it can wait for now. After passing a checkpoint manned by several wizards and drones that simply scanned them on their way in, with a few strange looks at Jack for good measure, the two of them made it into the library proper. Looking around, the streets of pale yellow brick were immaculately clean, with vigilant guards being a very common sight as they headed to the tallest skyscraper at the heart of the territory paved out clearly before them, as the main path began branching off in a tidy order, highlighted by different coloured signs with runes not even Chio could identify. Many service robots were patrolling around the place, offering to guide the two of them more than once around the maze of smaller coloured crystal huts around them. Approaching the large building, Jack was momentarily confused as he couldn't find the entrance, before Chio patiently guided him to a seemingly blank metal wall, which gracefully parted into a gateway, almost as if the metal was made out of liquid. Several sparks then popped into existence and formed into arrows, bidding them to enter, which they both did without much need for prompting. The massive reception area of the library was far larger on the inside than Jack expected it to be. It was a sprawling expanse of fine, polished marble that reflected the lights above, with high ceilings adorned by floating crystalline chandeliers that each emitted a gentle glow, the colour of which slowly changed, fading in and out from one hue to the next. Numerous desks were strategically arranged in the reception area, though Jack was quite surprised to find no queues at any of them for patrons who needed assistance, almost like there were just enough for everybody to not have to wait. Walking forward, he could see that the desks were quite uniform, consisting of sleek dark wood with some metallic enhancements, each with an array of blue holographic terminals and droids working away on paperwork, while the blue-robed receptionists happily spoke to the customers, looking comfortable in their oversized relaxation chairs. As Jack and Chio looked around for a spare desk they could go to, the sparks reappeared as if reading their minds, quickly pointing and guiding them along the rows of desks with nobody showing any signs that they saw them as they passed. Soon enough, they were led to a free desk with a young-looking avian being with huge bulging eyes, reminiscent of an owl. "Good afternoon," they softly called out to them, gesturing with a feathered claw. "Please sit. How may I be of assistance?" "Greetings," Chio began, indicating Jack. "We have a few inquiries, but I would firstly like to get my friend here registered to the library." "Ah, a new scholar joins us," the owl-like being chirped excitedly as he turned to the human. "Most excellent. Could you hold out your hand for me, please?" Sure." Jack did as instructed, not sure why he had to.
"Thank you,"
the receptionist hooted as they gently grabbed Jack's palm and cast a spell. Resisting the urge to yank away, Jack waited patiently for a few moments as the owl-like being did their thing, looking a little confused at places before finally ending the spell.
"Excellent. We're mostly done with your registration. I just need to note down some details. You are an outsider, are you not?"
"I am, yes." Jack nodded with a sigh.
"I knew it. That's why I had a little bit of trouble. My magic reacted a bit strangely with you, but I was able to get what I need. Would you be all right waiting a few minutes while I note this all down?"
"Sure, no problem," Jack smiled, trying his best to look reassuring, though the receptionist did seem to wither slightly under his gaze. They waited there patiently for several minutes in silence, occasionally interrupted by the receptionist asking Jack a few seemingly random questions that didn't seem important to him at all, though Chio encouraged him to answer honestly.
"All right, we're almost done," the receptionist concluded. "And finally, what name do you want to appear on your library card?"
"Jack Frost," the human replied instantly. The receptionist nodded, typing away quickly on their terminal before a series of strange sounds occurred as a small blue card magically materialized on the desk in front of Jack.
"And with that, your card is ready,"
the receptionist grinned.
"However, it will take some time for you to be fully integrated into our system, so you won't be able to access our advanced features at this time."
"Right," Jack nodded unsurely, as he picked the card up and had a look. "Does it, do anything?"
"Do anything?"
the owl-like being asked curiously.
"Ah, right. As an outsider, you may not be familiar with the concept of a library card. Basically, if you need any of our services, you can scan the card along with anything else required by the specific service, and you will need it if you wish to copy any digital records we have, or even borrow one of our tomes, though a magical binding would be required."
"All right, sounds good," Jack smiled as he pocketed the card.
"Now, was there anything else I can assist you with?"
the receptionist asked.
"Yes,"
Chio nodded, while sliding a small cred stick along the table.
"I need to know where I can find information on the wilderness to the west of the city, and I'd also like to run a search on a species of giants." "Ah, certainly," the receptionist excitedly replied as he pocketed the cred stick. "Let me see." "I'm not bothered about where things are on the priority list. Finding out a few things about river giants is going to be simple enough, so I want to get that done first," Chio grinned, as the two of them had exited the reception and gone down the corridor the friendly sparks had indicated. "Though the lexicon of sapient species is gigantic, narrowing it down to megafauna and giant should make things a bit easier for us and narrow down the search time." As they dutifully followed the floating sparks, Jack looked around at the expansive corridor, seeing that there was more than met the eye. The walls weren't static, and had that similar fluidity that the outside did, with animated scenes playing out along them in intricate detail, with battles, sermons, and other scenes coming to life. He could even swear that some of the depictions were reacting to the two of them as they walked past. As the sparks directed them to turn to their right, they found that this new corridor was now lined by magical statues sculpted from strange materials Jack couldn't identify, that almost seemed to defy the laws of physics, with several whispers speaking various one-liners with the gravitas that indicated famous quotes by famous people from history.
And what followed was even stranger. Occasionally, as they walked, they would see archways adorned with glowing runes, and it was one of these that the sparks directed them to enter. It was obviously some kind of magical portal, and as they both approached, Jack could feel the energy coming off of it, like static in the air. Not wanting to let his trepidation show in front of Chio, he quickly followed after the Ilithi, closing his eyes tight as he went through. He cursed as, for a brief moment, it was as if the temperature had turned down to a polar level, leaving him clutching and rubbing at his arms. But after that nanosecond, the heat was back to a much warmer room temperature than what they had just left.
Jack, are you okay?
Chio asked in concern. Yeah, Jack sighed, as he opened his eyes again. Not done that before, though. That felt weird as fuck.
It's something you get used to. Sorry, I didn't realize you might not have done it before. Anyway, here we are at the lexicon.
The first thing Jack took note of was not the enormous bookshelves lining the walls, nor the detailed art of different peoples painted on the ceiling, but rather the strange aromas, like a great clash of ozone, ancient parchment and incense that stung his nostrils. He'd smelt something similar at his old school on Earth, where one of the lecture theatres simply stunk permanently, and it wasn't a smell anybody else seemed to comment on. Alright, Jack nodded. Well, we might have a system on Earth for organising libraries. I don't exactly see any decent signs here, just the numbers and letters of the rows.
We need to access a terminal first, Chio explained for him, pointing at a set of blue screens in a nearby alcove. This might be the more tedious bit.
Sitting down on a pair of plush, comfortable chairs in the alcove, the two of them quickly got to work, quickly typing in the filters for megafauna and giant. The sheer number of results they got back emphasized a pretty big problem. Well, that's a lot, Jack noted, and I can't see the word giant anywhere.
I believe the term river giant must not be the actual name of the species, more like an exonym, Chio lamented. And I don't know what they call themselves.
I guess we need some more filters then, Jack sighed. Well, we know they have a connection to rivers, and they live nearby at least.
That's true, Chio conceded. Very well, let's see what we get.
It took about half an hour to narrow those search results down, just enough for the two of them to start looking through the shells to see what they could find, and it wasn't much. Though the Orthithushi, the sea-dwelling ocean giants, and the Sithunatchi, the ugly-looking marsh giants, were quite close, Jack didn't feel like he had found anything useful.
Jack, I might have something here, but it isn't much. Come take a look?
Chio asked, and he quickly followed the Ilithi signs to find her perusing what was little more than a few sentences. Shame they don't have a picture, Jack pointed out, but I've had a few species with this she as a suffix, and all of them were giants. If we use that as a pattern, these Aidinushi might be what we're looking for.
Well, these are said to be green of skin and have some semi-amphibious traits, whatever that means. They worship Ilis, who is a minor goddess of travel, and are culturally very religious and a primarily nomadic race that tend to keep to themselves most of the time, unless arrangements have been made, though they take the hospitality of guests and fellow travellers very seriously. Unfortunately, that's all I have, and we spent too much time on this already.
Well, if they're going to be cooperative, that's great. If this is even the right entry for them. Jack snorted in amusement. Right, next I guess we've got to find out more about the area of operation. You said that was harder, right?
Yep, though we want to find out what we can,
Chio grinned, as Jack stifled a yawn.
Let's go.
Got anything on Cypherport? Jack asked several hours later, as the two of them tried to compile as much information as they could on the area. Jack had discovered the river, which he had found about 3 different names for so far, but was most commonly referred to as Gosrif's Fingers, and that the wilderness around had a history of farming when it was settled, as the river provided a decent floodplain that kept the local soil fertile, so it opened up the possibility of still standing abandoned buildings to take shelter in, or comb for valuables.
I found a little, Chio began. Cypherport is so named because of a strange runic obelisk of some kind that's been there as early as records tell me. It's apparently unbreakable and the runes change every so often. Nobody knows what the obelisk is actually about, but that hasn't stopped scholars from trying to find out. It's something of a local curiosity, but aside from that, the records tell me that Scifi began as a small community started by a couple of wizards interested in it, which grew into the small frontier town it is today. It was described a century ago as a quiet retreat from civilization.
So it doesn't seem like an interesting place, Jack shrugged. I guess that's good news?
I'll take it, the Ilithi giggled. And what did you find on the area?
A few names on the river we can do some follow-up research on if we need to. Apparently it gets quite wild at times, so we'll need to see what our ride is going to be like when we get there.
That's reasonable, Chio nodded. Though I somehow doubt a group of river giants will be patrolling the river in a rubber dinghy.
Ha! Wouldn't that be a sight? Jack chuckled, though he received an ethereal whisper in his ear telling him to shush.
What else did you find? Chio asked him.
There's previous signs of the area being inhabited by farmers and ranchers, though that was a long time ago. Who's to say now? Jack said. Remnants of fields, fences and hedges probably, but we might have a road network we can use to make things easier.
On the plus side, that probably means no big hills or terrible terrain, Chio reasoned. However, we might be exposed in the open if there are any enemies around.
Yeah, I wasn't able to find any accounts of possible monsters, but much of this information is old, Jack noted. It's a shame these guys can't seem to keep their records current.
You've seen how huge the place is, Chio reminded him, and it's not like the information is high in demand. Still, at least we know more now.
That's true, Jack shrugged. Though I was able to find a few references on the shrine. Much of it is without any context.
That's good, Chio nodded. Did you manage to get any maps?
Yup, Jack grinned, before his expression got more serious. But again, not current. Still better than nothing. Hopefully things won't have changed much.
We better compile and copy as much information as we can from this, Chio noted. We've managed to make the conclusions we can here, but Scifi can back it up with her datanet connections.
And Nika will probably go over the maps with a fine-tooth comb, Jack agreed. Alright, let's just get everything we can and we'll go through it. We've still got tomorrow night after all.
Yes, I think we've done what we can here, Chio concluded. We've been working hard.
Take away dinner? Jack asked with a grin.
I'd never say no to that, but normally we'd save that for after the run, Chio giggled. Nika says we need to eat super healthy beforehand, but it just makes me crave more sweets. I need energy to fuel my powers, for goodness sake.
Well, the others won't know if we head to a bakery on the way back. I'd love to have a Belgian bun or something sweet.
I couldn't agree with you more.
As they left, a blue-robed squarry woman that had been working on the shelves nearby waited until it was safe before quickly walking over and checking the search history on the nearby terminal. She recognized the outsider immediately, of course, unlike her peers who were constantly too busy with research to keep up with current affairs. She felt a strong pang of guilt as she remembered seeing him on television, being lauded as a hero that fought selflessly to protect his fellow partygoers, many of whom were almost the same age as her own children. The shame made her hesitate for a long while, but being reminded of her children strengthened her resolve. She had done everything right and everything she could. She and her husband had obtained an honest living working in the Grand Library, and worked hard to provide a stable living for her family, or at least the closest thing to it. But when the attacks came, and the corporations started their war, the hard times got harder for her family every single day. She had often gone without meals, just so her children could eat what little food she could buy when Corvin Enterprises inflated the prices to extortionate levels. She remembered telling the kids that she wasn't hungry and to eat up, when in reality, the only reason she didn't starve was the allocation of meals at the library. Bills were high, rent was due. Her job at the library was stable and the work was good and kept them going so far, but with the chaos the city was in, it just wouldn't be enough anymore. The only thing she had left to pay with was her soul. She made the call.
"That outsider you're looking for, I know where he's going to be," she reported, not bothering with any pleasantries.
Nobody would ever find out, but a bounty was a bounty after all, and information like this paid well. At least her family would eat tonight.